Okay, so another important conic section that we're going to look at in Algebra 2 is the ellipse. All right, and an ellipse is a set of all points in a plane, the sum of whose distances from two fixed points is constant. Now these two fixed points are called foci. That's a plural of focus, and we'll bring those in just a minute. Now you want every equation to graph an ellipse to look like that. Okay, it's going to be x squared over number plus y squared over number equals 1. It always has to equal 1, okay? And let's talk about the different parts of an ellipse. Okay, so the long axis is called the major axis. All right, so there's your major axis. The short axis is called the minor axis. And where they intersect is the center. Okay, now what are foci? Well, foci are always on the major axis, and we indicate them by the letter C, and C squared equals A squared minus B squared. And I should point out, I forgot to do this, A squared is always greater than B squared. That's how you tell them apart. A squared is always the bigger number. Okay? If they're equal to each other, you actually get a circle. A circle is a special case of an ellipse. Okay, so that means that C is plus or minus the square root of A squared minus B squared. And so let's say that we've got a focus there and we've got a focus there. All right, so where do they come into the picture here? Well, if I pick a random point x comma y on the ellipse, that distance from one focus plus this distance to the other focus is going to be a constant. Okay, so this would be at negative C0 and this would be at positive C0. You can also have ellipses where the major axis is vertical, and in that case A squared is underneath y. Okay, so that means that your major axis is going vertically and your minor axis is going horizontally. This distance is A, and that distance, that didn't turn out very well, did it? Okay, so that distance right here is also A. This distance is B, and that distance is B that way. So that's how you know how big to make your major and minor axes. You look at A squared and B squared. Take the square roots, and that tells you how far to go out from the center. So let's do an example with some numbers. Okay, so 25 is greater than 9, so A squared is 25, B squared is 9. A squared is underneath X, so that means our major axis is going to go horizontally. A is 5, B is 3. So from the center, 0, 0, I'm going to go out 5 to the right and 5 to the left. I'm going to go up 3 and down 3. And then I'm going to just fill in my ellipse. Okay, now what about foci? All right, so C is plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 9, which is plus or minus the square root of 16, which is plus or minus 4. And your foci are always on the major axis. So I'll do those in blue. So there's one right there, and there's one right there. And that's it. That's how you graph the ellipse. Now you won't always get the equation of your ellipse in nice standard form. Sometimes you have to do a little work. So let's take a look at this example. Alright, so I've got 4x squared plus 24x plus 25y squared minus 50y minus 39 equals 0. So I'm going to factor out a 4 from the x terms, leave a space, factor out 25 from the y terms, leave a space, and bring the constant over to the other side. So I'm going to add half of 6 squared in here, and because I'm completing the square, I'm going to add half of 2 squared in there. Now I'm really adding 9 times 4 to both sides, so I have to add a 36, and I'm adding a 1 times 25, so I have to add a 25 over here. Okay, so this works out to 4 x plus 3 squared plus 25 y minus 1 squared, and 39 plus 36 plus 25 is 100. Okay, so We're almost there. Every equation of ellipse you want equal to 1, so I'm going to divide everything by 100. 4 goes into 125 times. 25 goes into 104 times. And 100 goes into 101 times. Now we're good. So what's different about this? Well, I've got a number being added to x and a number being subtracted from y. All that does is it just moves your center, okay? So since I'm adding 3 to x, I'm going to go to the left 3. And since I'm subtracting 1 from y, I'm going to go up 1. So this center is at positive 3, comma 1. Okay. A squared is 25. That means a is 5. It's underneath x, so I'm going to go 5 in the horizontal direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counting from the center, of course. And then I'm going to go to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B squared is 4. That means b is 2. I'm going to go from the center up 2 and down 2. So here's my ellipse. Okay, foci. C is plus or minus the square root of a squared minus b squared, which is plus or minus the square root of 21. Well, what is square root of 21? Well, it's between 16 and 25, so we'll put it between 4 and 5. So we'll have one focus between 4 and 5 that way, and one focus between 4 and 5 that way. And that's how you graph that ellipse. Okay, last example. So this time we know where the foci and the vertices of this ellipse are. We're supposed to find the equation. All right, so here we go. It helps to kind of get a picture of where all these parts are. So I've got foci at 4, negative 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, negative 7, and 4, negative 1. And I've got vertices at 4, negative 8 and 4, 0. Now remember that the foci are always on the major axis, so this ellipse is doing something like that. Question is, where's the center? Well, the center is going to be the midpoint of my vertices. So the center, remember the midpoint formula? Add the x's and divide by 2. Add the y's and divide by 2. And I'm going to get 4, comma, negative 4. So it's right there. Okay, since the major axis is vertical, I'm going to have a squared underneath y squared. Well, let me erase that because I know that I am subtracting a negative 4 from y. And I'm subtracting a positive 4 from x. That's going to equal 1. Okay, so how much is a? Well, there's a, and that distance from 4, negative 4 to 4, 0 is 4. So a equals 4. What about b? Well, remember that c squared equals a squared minus b squared. And c is that distance there, which is 3. So 9 equals 16 minus b squared. So b squared equals 7. Now we have everything we need for our equation. Y plus 4 squared over 16 plus x minus 4 squared over 7 equals 1. And that's the equation of the parabola with those foci and those vertices.